Recently on Cosmic Disclosure, I described information that I'd received in a couple of briefings. And the information, the way it was conveyed, was confusing because I also was confused. I have been trying to understand the cycles of the sun and the context of the conversation I heard it in. And as you'll see here in a bit, there's a reason why I was confused, because scientists are actually confused. So recently we've heard scientists discuss that the universe is a giant simulation. That it's maybe a computer simulation somewhere, and we just happen to be living it out. While others in the past have thought that the universe behaves more like a giant thought. Now, consciousness is the key to all of this. Everyone talks about ascension, and they don't really, or they have a different idea of what ascension is. And a lot of this information is coming from these main sources. A secret space program, I had access to the smart glass pad. I would sit and I would read and ask the scientists or the engineers for their input, because a lot of it was just over my head. And they would explain, speculate among themselves, and that was the scuttlebutt that I would pick up on and that I brought with me on my testimony to Cosmic. The Anshar recently, when I spent a few days with them, interacted with me in a way through their technology that they shared with me their past, which they claim is our future. The Blue Avians have shown me this information on a completely different level, from a different point of view, from more of a sixth density point of view. And I've brought all those together to try to explain the recent information I've been given. So the SSP Alliance, they've been fighting for full disclosure. What originally caused the SSP Alliance to form was that they found out about the slave trade that was going on, the galactic slave trade, and the trading of genetic materials to other beings from other star systems. And they want the crimes against humanity exposed, as well as the technologies. These alliance factions pretty much formed out of Solar Warden in the beginning, and then some of the other secret space programs like the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate and the Global Galactic League of Nations, people began to defect and bring technology with them and information, which is the most important thing. And they could break out of the compartmentalization and then begin to fully start sharing information in a way that they couldn't before, and begin to put things together. Now, the Anshar, they claim to be humanity in the future. This has caused a lot of confusion. There already is a lot of confusion in the programs about Nordic-looking beings, because there are Nordic-looking beings that have been interacting with us since we formed the United States, at least, that we know. And some of them are actually from other planets. Others are from completely different, I guess, a dimension. The Anshar claim to be from a different time, a timeline, or a future timeline. So, you know, there were arguments that I heard between the SSP scientist types and engineer types were that they were from another dimension. So there's a lot of discussion about where these people are from and exactly why they're here. So the Anshar, they're fourth density, they're us in the future. They live in an underground civilization, and they've been in a timeline war against the reptilians for tens of millions of years. And I heard a little bit more about the future that I'm going to share later on, about what occurred with the reptilians, how the reptilians were in servitude to this artificial intelligence. The reptilians are infested with nanites and are pretty much slaves themselves. And that all ties in at the end. The Blue Avians, or part of the sphere being alliance. They're 6 density beings, and as we've been speaking about recently, they were a part of this ancient builder race, this ancient builder race was a conglomerate group that had a vast empire in our local 52 stars about close to 2 billion years ago. And they have stated that they're responsible for delivering the law of one information, as well as several other teachings here on Earth. But I'll go into also more details about what they've said about all of our distortions and how we filter information, and even how I deliver information, through my own distortions. Now, they have claimed that they are the messengers and facilitators of the one infinite creator. And the realm they come from, we would basically consider an angelic realm. So we could basically consider them angelics, I would say. Okay, now this is where we're going to talk about the filters, because how many people have read the Law of One? Okay, and how many people think they understand distortions, what distortions are? Excellent. For those who don't, and I've used this metaphor before, so bear with me. When we begin this life, we come in with no memory, nothing. We have to rebuild we have to re-experience and rebuild who and what we are. So we have nothing around us except for little bits and pieces of information. We're constantly looking and picking those little bits and pieces of information, pieces of sand, and we're taking that information and that experience and we're putting it in a little dish and we grind it together. And then we make a little lens out of it. And that's how we look at the world and information. And as we build this lens, it becomes distorted with our emotions and traumas and how we perceive certain experiences. That's the lens that we hold up to light, which we're going to call information. And then the light gets diffracted through the lens, and it's not the type of the pure light. All of us, every single one of us, no matter how far we think we've come, we have one of those lenses that give us the distortions and the information we take in. So when I'm having an experience with these beings, I am bringing in that information through my lens, my belief systems, my experiences, my perceptions. And when I then turn and give the information to everyone else, the same thing is occurring. And you have to realize that when the information hits you, already distorted through my lens, it then has to go through your lens. So for them to deliver information like the Law of One to us through these lenses and get it and in a way that will filter through all of our lenses in somewhat of a similar way to where we get the point is very difficult. And just know that the information that I'm bringing in is coming through my lens, and everyone should use their discernment. And also, some of this information can appear to be fearful, and the minute I talk about ascension, people say I'm spraying hopium everywhere, or if I talk about solar flash, it's fear porn. So it's all the energy we feed into it. It is really all that matters. So we're going to be talking about full disclosure, the solar event. Is our future the Anshar's past? And of course, ascension and what it is. So full disclosure, the time of the great revealing. We're coming to a time to where the energetics are going to create an atmosphere to where we're not going to be able to lie to each other. We're not going to be able to keep secrets from each other. It's already, watch the news. It's very difficult to keep things hidden. In this great time of revealing, I think we're gonna get a lot of truths. It doesn't sound like there's any plan to give us a full disclosure. It's something that we're gonna have to fight for, but it's not something that's gonna be just handed over to us. So, let's see. So the space program and the programs, they want, as I stated, a full disclosure. They want all the crimes against humanity information revealed, and a part of that is revealing our hidden history, which is quite expansive. The history that we don't know is amazing. Sorry, I'm being a little distracted by the noise. Now, on the Anshar timeline, which they're claiming is our future, they didn't get full disclosure until after the solar event happened. What occurred was that the solar event knocked out all of the technologies, and all of our cosmic cousins just appeared in the sky and began to render aid. So it looks like, if we believe that our future is their past, then it could occur simultaneously, full disclosure and first contact. Now, the Blue Avians have always stated, I mean, the point when they wanted me to come out and tell people I was talking to 8-foot tall blue birds, and I was like, no. No. And they told me that, I said, no one would believe that. But let's see, how many people do we have here? I said, no one will believe that. And they basically told me that it is not important whether or not they believe. This information just needs to filter into their consciousness, and thus into the mass consciousness, and then the job is done. It's, we don't need to convince people and argue and debate with them. They're less focused on full disclosure than on ET and technology than they are on us focusing inwardly and beginning to release karmic energy that is holding just about everyone back and anchoring us to third density. I've discussed in the past where each of our traumas is, and I've discussed how many of us, we have traumas that are holding us back from people. Some of them are dead and gone, and they still have the same power over us as they did when we were a child. When we have that going on, that type of trauma, there are memories that we don't want to relive. So our mind segments them, and it uses a part of your processor. It's constantly doing corralling that memory, making sure it doesn't pop out. And once that trauma is dealt with and that memory is nullified, the energy of that memory, then your brain can use the processor and open it up to work on other things. That's what they're more concerned about us focusing on than, us praying to them, reaching out to them. They want us to reach inwardly. That's what, when you bring up disclosure, they always circle you back around to the inner work. Now, unfortunately, the Earth Alliance and a lot of the other groups that sit around in dark rooms and plan out our futures without our input have decided that they're going to trickle information out over the next 20, 50, 100 years, depending on if they have to mitigate any type of disclosures happening from the other side, and just make it a nice, long, prolonged disclosure, because they really, really don't think we can handle it. And I don't think we can handle it either, but I think we have to. It wouldn't be pretty, but it's something we have to do. And of course, full disclosure is the complete antithesis of that. I cannot talk today, I don't know why. And the complete release of crimes against humanity, and the involvement of ETs in our evolution. And pretty much all evolution occurs through stress, if you believe in Darwinism. So the solar cycles, this is where I really got confused, because I remembered that solar cycles were 11 years. That's just what I remembered from school. And it turns out that they are not on they don't always work on 11-year cycles. The last one, I believe, was like 7 years. You go through, we're exiting cycle 24 right now, and we're supposed to be going into cycle 25. According to all of the work that they've done predicting solar cycles, the solar cycles are supposed to be picking up in intensity, but they're reducing. And they're slowly, the sun is slowly getting weaker and weaker in intensity. Well, what I was realizing is that each of these cycles really is a pulse. The sun is pulsing. It's always pulsing. So the pulsing has been going on since the sun has existed. Now, the solar minimum date, when I was sitting across from Sigmund and he was giving the briefing, one of the people at the briefing asked Sigmund, have we entered solar minimum? And he didn't answer, and he kept speaking. So I found out later why he didn't answer. It's because you do not know that you have switched into solar minimum for at least 6 months, because they count sunspots, and they'll speculate when solar minimum will occur, but they don't know until about 6 months after it actually does occur, and they can say, okay, we are in solar minimum. And they're predicting that solar minimum will be between 2019 and 2020, this cycle, which, according to Sigmund, he said that if this solar event did not occur at the end of this maximum going into minimum, which I guess is going into 2020, that they did not expect the solar event to occur again until it came out of solar minimum into solar maximum again, when it came back alive. And that could be anywhere from 5-7 years, so there's really no way to predict it. But that does put us right back in the original timeline, pretty much, maybe a little bit past that the secret space program was talking about, the 2018 to the 2023-24 period. So it's still around that period. Pretty much, in thinking that 11-year they were all 11-year cycles, I just added 11 years, and it added to the confusion. So, what is the solar sneeze? I saw in the smart glass pad how they had talked about it was going to be a massive 360-degree full mass coronal ejection. And also in the papers, they were thinking, some people were postulating that it was just going to be this major just energy pulse, and then people were going to turn into light bodies. There are all these different ideas about what's going to happen. According to the Anshar, what they showed me when I was sitting in one of the egg-shaped chairs and they were showing me their history, they showed me the sun explode. And when it exploded, it kind of exploded in an oblong way around the equators, where most of it exploded out, and then some out from close to each pole. And it was just huge waves of plasma coming in. The animation, it shows fire, but it was huge plasma clouds coming in. And we'll see in the animation later, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. I was sitting here and I was in the chair, and it was funny because the earth was hovering above my knees, and the sun was over here, and then the moon was moving and it was up here, and then there was a flash, and then all of the plasma that I mentioned you see leaving, and then it hits the moon, and then it hits the earth, and it hits the earth spins like maybe 20 degrees. It spins, and where it hit, there's a circle where it punches through the atmosphere, and it looked like it was above Europe and partially above the Pacific, and it was like a hurricane of fire that went down, and it boiled the water and burned the land in this one area, but it didn't destroy. It wasn't this huge destruction like they depict on Knowing or some of these sci-fi movies, to where the Earth is just completely destroyed. But there were some pretty rough side effects. I'm skipping way ahead. So in the programs, a lot of the nuts and bolts people thought this is it. It's going to be the end of all civilization, all technology. Everyone's going to die. Some of the others believed that it was going to transfer everybody immediately into light bodies. We're going to fly around and read each other's minds. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. And then others believed it was just going to be the start of some golden age somehow. Some were going to try to create a golden age through technology and AI, and the others thought it was going to go the spiritual way. But when it comes down to it, the truth is somewhere in between. One of the things Mika told me was that out of all the local 52 stars, how many of those, out of those local 52 stars, how many of them do you think everything unfolded just like in their religions and prophecies? None. Not one. There were similarities. There was information that helped each of them prepare, but none of them were exactly like how they had been told in prophecy. And I think we can expect the same. So the Anshar, as I just stated what they showed me with the explosion, but when the solar explosion occurred and the energy and plasma interacted with the Earth, there was loss of life. But what occurred was immediately after that, our cosmic cousins came in and rendered aid. So the state of, I'm going to get much more in depth about this later on, but the state of humanity, I think, is what a lot of people are curious about. There was a kind of a split in the way people reacted after this catastrophe and upgrade. The people, I guess like us, that have been preparing and doing the work, we go through trauma, we have to go through a rescue ourselves, but we come out of it with a completely different understanding. This consciousness is this ascension is a consciousness shift. And when our consciousness goes through this shift, we see everything from a completely different way. All of our problems we see from different angles. We connect with each other in a different way because we start to understand oneness, how we are all one, and how we can communicate easier when you understand the full concept of oneness. And then we begin to kind of pull together and assist each other and work with the non-terrestrials. The vast majority of the population who had been asleep and not doing the work had a very rough time. Once they found out about the 22 genetic programs, they were told that they were being handed over the right to control their own genetics, they rebelled. They pretty much rebelled. They began to mix all of their genetics together. All races began to mix together. They began to hack their genetics, giving themselves like green eyes or purple hair or whatever, And they didn't understand until generations later, this is like generations going on, that the first genetic farmers that came in had genetically tinkered with them to a point where if they started to fully mix their DNA and hack certain parts of their DNA, that these horrible genetic diseases would occur. And even though we've been given all of this new technology from the surviving space program and these ETs, we don't understand what's going on. And eventually we reject the ETs. Not us, but the portion of humanity that doesn't do well during the transition, they're very distrusting of ETs for a number of generations. And eventually when they have this genetic disease, they have to call in the ETs for help. And then the ETs come in and assist them, and then they begin to open up to the ETs, and their consciousness begins to catch up to the rest. And after a number of generations, the consciousness gets to a point to where everyone is pretty much caught up, and our mass consciousness is on this one kind of vibe. And then at that point, we begin to feel other groups, like we discover the Anshar deep in the earth. And then the Anshar come and visit us at that point, openly. And then it's very hard to describe about how timelines just kind of collapse together. Our present and their future just kind of comes together. When they're openly contacting us and they have technology 20 million years in the future, all of a sudden now we're 20 million years in the future if we meld with them. So that's a massive jump that can occur. And that massive jump causes another massive jump in consciousness. And this consciousness renaissance we go through is pretty crazy, but it does happen over generations, according to the Anshar and their past. The blue avians have always stated that this was just a natural cycle. It was not, it wasn't that things just got so bad here that all the angelics got together and said, okay, enough is enough. It was just a natural part of how the cosmic machine works. This would cause not only a consciousness expansion, but the energetics were going to cause our DNA to change in vibration, and other strands become more energetically available to us, and that helps us with that helps us with the spiritual side, more bandwidth, energy bandwidth. Now, on the timeline that the blue avians showed me, they did show me the buildup of, as the sun got, more of the energy was feeding through the sun, the earth begins to heat up from the inside, from the energy from the sun, and volcanoes begin to get much more active. And then the storms become more and more powerful, more and more energetic. And these are all just signs of the energetics building up in our solar system. One of the major things they said to watch for is when volcanoes start erupting all around the world. But what was interesting about the meteor is that it was shown to me that because of the energetics, the electrical charge of the Earth is changing, and it's affecting the way things are attracted to it. So some more debris is being pulled towards the Earth. And one of them was a meteor that was pulled in over the Pacific Ocean, exploded pretty high up in the atmosphere, and sent a shock wave and caused a tsunami. Not a super devastating one, but a tsunami. And that just seemed to be some sort of a marker. It was after a lot of this was shown to me in dreams and through technology that I decided to move my family to Colorado. Yeah, nice. It was one of the safe zones that they showed me. The SmartPad information basically, connects to some ET databases, but mainly connects to all the dark military scientific databases. And like I said, the scuttlebutt in the programs was that this was going to happen at the end of the solar minimum, which could be next year or the year after. So, I bet if we talk to 5 different people in here, we would get 5 different answers on what ascension is. And you know what? We won't know until the time, will we? So, the SSP Alliance, like I said, there are a lot of different ideas about what will occur. But most of all, they believe that the fulfillment of their prophecies, biblical prophecies, and some other prophecies that we've never seen that are hidden prophecies, a part of their secret manuscripts, that they are watching to occur, and in many cases, they're trying to make occur. You know, they'll make wars in certain cities, ancient cities occur to, you know, like Damascus. They're trying to make certain prophecies be fulfilled. Now, the Anshar, as I stated, they believe that it, is there a feedback? I don't know if they can take care of that. So, you know, we've pretty much talked about this. It's a natural part of evolution according to the Anshar. And according to the law of one, those who remain in fourth density upon this plane will be of a positive orientation. So it appears that I think that a major part of the negativity being removed from our solar system is going to be the AI. The AI seems to be the biggest problem in the universe. No matter how advanced beings are, they seem to be wrestling with AI in one way or another. Now here we go. Their history. All right. So they have all three groups have studied that and put out how much they understand our co-creative consciousness and our mass consciousness, how it can create reality. So the question that was asked, and it's a good question, by Sigmund. Sigmund does not trust the Anshar or the Nordics or any of the groups. He's saying if we have this co-creative ability, and the Cabal has used movies to control our co-creative abilities to create what they would like, how do we know that the Anshar really are us in the future, and how do we know that they're not telling us this information to get us to co-create it? Good questions. And I don't know the answer to that. I haven't sensed deception from them, but they're much more advanced beings than I will ever be, so I can't pretend that I'm advanced enough to know, you know, what's going on in their consciousness. But all I can do is observe and report, and that's what I'm going to do. Now, a lot of the type of information I was shown has been popping up in prophecy going back thousands of years. Even Edgar Cayce talked about very similar things. So, you know, the Book of Enoch, a bunch of other texts, they talk about, you know, cataclysms and things that sound like pole shifts. Now, recently, I spent 3 days with the Anshar, and I got to end up spending some time with the elders. And the elders pretty much spend a great deal of their time in the chairs. And the elders are probably the number one group that are connecting with people. They were trying to teach me how to use the chair, to interact with the chair. And have y'all used the biofeedback toys to where you'll put a little thing on your head and try to get a ball to float, and you sit there and you finally figure it out? It's kind of similar to that. What they started out showing me was how they observe us. They sit in these chairs, and they will observe us at home or at work, and they have a readout. They know what we're thinking and what we're postulating. Like if a scientist is sitting there, and he's very close to a breakthrough, but not quite there, they'll just do this little ball thing comes up and floats, and they're messing around that, kind of like a mouse tracker. And they'll do things with it, and they'll give people a download, an informational download, and the information comes in like a zip file, and then it just unzips inside the person, and it's like original thought to the person. And they've been doing that, and what's weird is they do that to maintain the timeline, but it's also their entertainment. It's like watching television. Some of them will follow, it's like almost like a soap opera. They will follow us for like 5 generations. You know, they'll see a person, they'll be, oh, you remember his great-great-grandfather, how he would act that way? He kind of looks like him too, you know. They follow us that long because they live over 900 years. So, I mean, that was a little disturbing. I don't know, when you think you're alone, you spend your time a lot differently after, you know, you wear a towel when you wouldn't normally wear a towel. Because, I mean, they're probably floating around here right now observing us. But that was pretty, I mean, they spend a lot of time in the chairs and a lot of time observing and interacting with us. We just don't realize it. A lot of time in our dreams, too. So once I finally got to a point to where they didn't have to spend all their energy helping me use the chair, and I could use it somewhat on my own, I started interacting with this one elder in particular. And Elil, he was almost 1,000 years old, and he spends almost all of his time in these chairs interacting and observing humanity. And they also observe other beings on it. They can they can sit in a chair, and if they want to know what's going on, like if the reptilians are having a meeting, they're there, just like they would do with us. And I don't think there's any real way of keeping them out. It's pretty amazing. So let's see. So I discussed the huge plasma hurricane. A lot of there was disturbing visuals that came along. You know, people bobbing around in the water like dead fish, and just horrible visuals. A lot of sea life dead, burned, like it had been boiled. But it was a small portion. It wasn't the whole Earth. It wasn't like I was expecting. It was a smaller local event. Now, when the Earth is knocked off its axis, there were some major tsunamis, nearly a mile high. And what land wasn't encroached upon by those tsunamis was then hit really hard by winds. The tsunamis pushed the air. And so if a tsunami is traveling near the speed of sound, if it's like 600 or 700 miles per hour, the air is being pushed as well. So there are this air blast just blasts across, and areas that are not in safe zones had a pretty rough time. And there's the simulation again. You see that little swirl of where that's supposed to be the... So what they showed me next was amazing. The sun literally turned into a giant coronal hole. It was not black, but it was almost black. And it was that way for a number of days, and then it just, poof, it comes back with a big explosion, it comes back into equilibrium, and it's now a different type of star, slightly different type of star. It went through its 4th density evolution. When I've talked to these beings about why does the Earth have to go through this cataclysm, why, what's up with that, they said, I'm told that on all the different planets, there is some sort of planetary disruption. And when I've asked them, is there a way to stop it from happening? And they asked me, who are you to interfere with the transition of a planet going into 4th density? So it's kind of hard to argue with. Can't argue with it. So what happens is you see the solar flare knock everything out. The survivors on the planet, if aid had not been rendered, 90% of them would die. I mean, this was a technological civilization. Technology's gone. So civilization is gone. There is a cosmic loophole to where when civilization has collapsed, or if it's below a certain level, that ETs can come in and openly interact with us. And that's happened with us many times in the past. What happened was, it was almost immediately after this event occurred, you begin to see some stragglers, small little numbers of secret space program people that survived that were coming to try to help basically their people here on the Earth. But simultaneous with that, you see all of the sky is covered in clouds. You can't see the stars. All of a sudden, all of these stars all over the Earth start to appear in the sky under the clouds, and they just hover there. And then they all in unison, not one at a time, all in unison drop and come down to the Earth and begin to render aid to everyone, and helping them stabilize and deal with the trauma, and then begin to share with them information about the different projects and everything. And then that's when a lot of us go into our rebellious stage. And one of the other things that I found interesting was that even the Anshar are born and die, and still go through the karmic cycle. So a lot of us that are expecting a flash to happen in the sky, and then there's no more suffering, there's no more death. Apparently, many generations of us still have to go through this karmic cycle, and allow for the full all of the consciousness to catch up. It's a process. It's not what I was taught when I was a little kid by my granddad, but now the solar event destroys all artificial intelligence in the solar system and nanites. What, according to the Anshar, is going to be curious is how we respond to all of a sudden seeing bewildered greys and reptilians walking around, having no idea what's going on, or any memory or understanding of why they behaved the way they had. These beings will basically be blank slates. And there are going to also be some humanoids and humans that have had those implants that have done bad things, that after the implants are removed, we're going to have to figure out what's the ethical way to deal with them. A lot of how we deal with this information pivots us into the type of reality we're going to have next, because a lot of disturbing things are going to be revealed to humanity. Humanity's already going to be very ticked off, and to find out that truly they had been slaves and genetic experiments, it's going to be a rough time. But for about 1,000 years, we're in this energetic field that prevents any type of AI, prevents these negative Orion groups from coming back in, and it's an energy field that is maintained somehow by these sixth density and higher beings. I don't fully understand how. They've tried to show me. I don't have the ability to comprehend. And if I tried to repeat it, probably wouldn't make sense. So, the number one takeaway, I guess, going back to the 1930s, whether they channeled or reported actual face-to-face encounters, everyone who has had an ET experience, and an in-depth one, they usually report that the ETs want two things: us to work on disclosure, revealing suppressed technologies, the existence of ETs, very important. And second is to grow spiritually, or to expand your consciousness. And that's something that we're working on both sides of. We're trying to get as many groups as we can together to unite and begin to do demonstrations. We're talking about doing red pill parties, to where you can invite people over and find different ways to wake them up. And that's all great, but the number one thing that needs to be done, basically the Blue Avians, stated before they left as well, is that we have to start healing the trauma. This cycle of being caught up in the trauma and not able to fulfill our mission because of the trauma, we don't have time for that anymore. It's time for us to deal with these things and move on and focus on trying to bring out the most optimal temporal reality for all of us. I think that just about everyone in this room is most likely a starseed. They felt called to be here to experience this. I was told that I agreed to this, although I've asked repeatedly for some sort of a video clip of me signing, you know. I haven't had one yet, but supposedly we agreed to this. And supposedly we're here for a reason. And I think that right now we should focus all of our energy on finding out what that reason is. If you already know what your mission is, then now is the time not to let anything hold you back. This is the Great Awakening. All of us, every single person in here chose to come here, and believe it or not, you chose to have all these crazy experiences, to have this perspective. You chose to do whatever weird little hobbies, weird jobs that brought you this knowledge, and you didn't know how you would ever use it. But it looks like now's the time. Going back to the trauma, we came here to have these experiences, and we supposedly agreed to the trauma. But as we came here as starseeds and were identified and seen as a threat, and they traumatize us, they don't realize they're training us for our mission. All we have to do is then learn how to let go of the energy of that trauma and then look back at those experiences and use them against the enemy. And we've all been trained. We just need to do the final part. So I think right now, I've talked with David, and I'm going to use David because he's been doing this for 20 years. And he has stated that he has never seen the community so jazzed up and ready to get involved, ready to make a difference. Usually he would sit there and, you know, they would smile and be happy in the seats, but now they're asking, what can I do? How can I get involved? And to that question, I say, you don't have to jump on my bandwagon, jump on your own bandwagon. Use your skills, your talents, these weird little oddball jobs that you've done where you've picked up this knowledge and you didn't know why. Use those to affect the mass consciousness in a positive way. That art, music, even people who have business knowledge, they don't understand why they became so proficient in business. When all of us come together, we find a way to take all of those skill sets and make them work. And I think that we're coming together during this time for a reason, because we are service to others. So, what do you do? What do you do from here? I've told people that it's probably not a good idea to go to your family tonight and talk about 8-foot-tall bluebirds. How many of you have tried that? Yeah, okay, I figured. Okay, how did it go? Not so good, right? Yeah. I haven't had the guts to try that one myself. The focus should be on suppressed technologies. There's a lot of information out there about suppressed health technologies, information out there about what's going on with all the vaccines. There are a lot of things more down to earth that you can focus on to begin to expand people's consciousness. And I think that if we use our skills, if we're artists, if we make movie clips, or whatever, if we use those skill sets mindfully towards our mission, then we are definitely going to make some major changes to this world. And I think that's what we're here for, and now is the time. I mean, if you look around, now is the time. Now. I've been talking about this for a year. I'm happy to announce that Return of the Guardians is now on sale. Finally. Thank you. Now, this is I think a lot of people in the community have been trying to figure out what in the heck is Corey doing. He's like making a comic book. He's talking about doing, movies and all these other weird things. Why? Well, one of the things Tier explained to me is that we need to use the tools that are being used against us. All of us have some sort of an ability to affect the mass consciousness, to affect even just a small part of the mass consciousness in little groups. If we can come up with things, like imagine if you had this book and you could hand it over to someone, okay? They look at it, they're into sci-fi, but they're not into aliens. I don't know how, but that's, sci-fi people are primed for this. And they usually read books about people killing each other and in different clever ways, but they get information about consciousness and the expansion of technology secretly, and it's done in an entertaining way. Well, this information is getting into their subconscious, and it begins to work on them. Their higher self uses that information and leverages that against other experiences and information coming in. If we can, not just me, if all of you, if you have experiences, go out and do your own comic book or movie or something. Find a way to use your creativity and the abilities that you came here with to affect the mass consciousness. That's what I hope most people leave here with. And also, buy my comic book. Yes, these are going to be signed. If you order them, you'll receive a signed copy. And of course, in August, how many people here went to Eclipse of Disclosure? A few? Yeah, it was an awesome event, a very family-oriented event. We're going to have another one. It's going to be in Colorado this time, Loveland, Dimensions of Disclosure. As you can see, we're having some big speakers, and there's going to be camping and a major family environment. That's what we try to encourage in our our festivals, is to people to be able to bring their kids. So we're looking forward to that. August 18th, we hope to see you there. It's going to be a blast. And again, if there was one person here that wasn't yeah, join Gaia. If you go through blueavians.com, I'll get a credit for it. Now, Gaia is also hiring. I don't have a list of the positions, but that's one of the ways. Gaia has found there's a lot of guilt that goes around with like making money in this community and the whole money thing. To be able to form a corporation, to have like a spiritual Netflix type of an environment, to be able to seed this information to people is very important. I think that people that have been trying to figure out how to use their skills towards affecting the mass consciousness in a good way. If you're business or marketing and you're trying to figure out, a number of people that I know have gone to work for Gaia and have been using their skills. Why not get paid to do your mission? Instead of doing it on the side and struggling. That's what I say. So anyway, they have a booth inside the main building. Stop by if you have a skill that you think would match. And of course, I've got a very large group of artists that help me put together these presentations. These, I would not be able to do anything like the production value that my team brings, and I really appreciate it because they mostly do it free of charge. So, did this bring up any questions for anyone? I think, are we going to have a mic? There we go. I can't really see people very well because of the light. So, just as people raise their hand, just go to people as they raise their hand. I can't really see.
Hi, Corey.
Hello.
I've heard this concept a number of different ways, at least 10 different ways, from Seth material, and that has to do with our ascension having or stopping another civilization's ascension. And as of late, I've heard of it in terms of the solar system being the third chakra of a grander being, as it were, and we're kind of preventing its ascension, as it were. Could you elaborate a little bit more upon this?
From what I was told, is that the Earth is going through its third, fourth density transitional, just like we are. The Sun is also going through this density shift and transformation. The Earth, no matter if we were here or not, if we were happy about it, sad about it, it's going to go through this transition. We're not going to hold it back from the transition. What occurs is that the energy of the beings on it their state can determine how difficult of a transition occurs. It's like we almost become like anchors, as it's trying to go through the energy, so it makes it rougher going through. If we were, as a mass consciousness, a little bit more blissed out, like has occurred in some of the other planets, then there's still going to be a rough transition, but it's not, anywhere near as bad as if they were putting out energy of, fear and just lower vibratory energy.
What about a comment about us stopping others from their?
The only thing that I heard was similar to that was that, like the blue avians, when they were the ancient builder race and they created all this technology to keep out the genetic farmers and to have their own thing going on in the local 52 stars, when they did that, when they ascended and left this plane and left technologies behind, those technologies were then utilized by developing beings that ended up making us karmically tied with that ancient builder race. So they were only able to get a certain distance in their ascension level before we started acting like a parachute. They couldn't go any further because of karmic ties that they had back to us, including over the last couple thousand years when they've delivered information hoping that we would take it and learn from it. Instead, we make religions out of it and control systems. But I hope that answers your question.
Hi, Corey. My name is Tanya Tays. I want to say hello to you.
Hello.
Hello. I read on your blog that you were modifying your presentation today. And I want to let you know that last night I was looking at the flyer for the entire event, and I read what you had posted that you had intended to talk about Google, Facebook, and Silicon Valley. And it occurred to me, I'm also clairvoyant, it occurred to me that there was the possibility that some of our friends from the government might have communicated to you about who do you think you are coming to Silicon Valley, talking about such things. In the event that that may have occurred, I do know that I happen to know from personal experience that those threats can be real, and you've also communicated, and David has communicated that those threats are real. I want to let you know that you are in the arms of the spiritual community here in the Bay Area. This is where it begins for the nation. We love you. We support you. We will always be here for you. You have friends here. Don't you ever worry.
Thank you.
Don't you ever worry about what you have to say, because we want to hear from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no threats from Silicon Valley. Thanks.
Stand up.
Hi, Corey. My name is Leslie Danielson, and I have a question. Does any of those avian, blue avians, get reincarnated into this plane, and are they here with us as humans also?
Yeah, there's probably a bunch of them in here now. Seriously, yeah.
Okay, because I have been to Sarah ceremonies, and I am known as a mother of feminine energy, and the energy of feminines that came to the ceremonies are blue, a lot of them, on the family ceremony of the Sapito. So I just wanted to know if I have any connection with them.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of incarnates here from a lot of different civilizations in the higher densities that are star seeds that are here to work.
Hey, Corey.
Hello.
Thanks for coming. could you clarify perhaps the consensus that you're getting from SSP, Blue Avians, and Anshar with regards to the kind of the process of the transition at the time of the event of the solar flash? Just in terms of, I'm a little confused after hearing David last night or yesterday. I mean, are we all going to get like swamped and blown away, and then they're going to come and help us, or?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a rough day on planet Earth. rough day, and our cosmic neighbors kind of see what's happening and decide to come over and help us finally. That's, yeah. Now, the big question is, are we able to change that future? And I don't know. The question, when I ask those types of questions and they tell me who am I to try to interfere with the transition of an entire planet, looks like, instead of changing the planet, we kind of need to learn how to mitigate what's going to happen. I mean, according to what I was told, in every star system, when they went through this solar event, there were some catastrophes of varying degrees. So, yeah, apparently that the actual event is what clears these beings to be able to come down openly.
Thank you. Corey, we get information saying that our current president is cooperating with the alliance, and I'd just like to know if you have any intel on that.
Yeah. Yeah, the current climate is so charged that talking about, I usually say the current president, because the word just causes an explosion. But yes, my information going back all the way from before he was elected was that he was approached. There was about to be an open coup, that it wasn't a coup against Obama, against the Democrats, it was against the system. The Republicans and Democrats are equally compromised, and they wanted someone who had, I guess, was brash and wasn't compromised by the cabal, wasn't owned, that I guess had the guts to face them. Now, a lot of people saying he's playing the part of the fool, which, he is. A lot of people say that about me too. That's okay, I'll own it. But he is just a small part in an alliance of many countries that are working to get rid of this very occult group that has been running the planet for thousands of years. And for the average person that watches the news every day to be told that these horrific things are occurring when we don't see anything like that in our created reality, that's a big leap to try to ask people to take. So then asking people to believe that there's an occult group running the planet, and then trying to ask these same people to believe that they're ETs, I mean, it's all a part of disclosure. All of this stuff is a part of disclosure. And I don't think when all this information comes out, none of us are going to be like, yes, my side was right. We're going to be like, oh, I voted for that guy. Oh, no, It's going to be like that, and we're all going to have to just move on. The number one thing is just, especially us in this community, is pulling ourselves out of that that created environment for left versus right and all of that. It's all created to cause division. Another main reason that they most likely don't want us to know about ETs is that all of our cosmic cousins around us, they don't have yellow hair and white skin. We hear about the Nordics a lot. When I saw them, they were all different shades of brown, and there were all different types. And on this planet, we're still dealing with racism and crap like that. I mean, and when the beings come out of the sky to help us, what are we going to do? And they have, they have brown skin, and we have these preconceived ideas. I don't know, we're going to have a lot to deal with when these beings come down, and it's like I said, it's not going to be anything like even us, how we think it's going to be. It's going to be an amazing event.
Hey, Corey.
Hello.
Hi. First of all, just a really big thank you from me, of course, and like everyone, for all this stuff that you do, because it's still a choice to do this, and you bring it to us in a way that I think is just really helpful, but most of all very empowering, and that is so useful. So thank you very much for that. Yes. So I hope you feel that love. And also, so obviously, predicting things in general, there's so many nuances, I'm sure, and moving pieces, but I just kind of wanted to get like your general opinion on Antarctica, and if it's kind of like, if you see it, if it would make sense to call it kind of like a wild card, so to speak.
Yes.
Because it's just been a real wild ride hearing about what's going on down there from you and others, of course. And just like to hear you speak about that a bit, because it seems like I constantly see every other day there's something in the news about, an accident there, or scientists are doing this there, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's obvious that they're trying to keep Antarctica just a little bit in our consciousness. And there's a reason for that. Yeah, there were a number, I spoke with David, and he was getting some intel as well. I was being told that some of the excavations had become so dangerous because of the moving ice, the melting ice, them using steam to excavate, that there had been major collapses, and that there had been loss of life of even like university types. So, but yeah, I've been hoping, I guess, not expecting the information to come out a lot quicker, but it's been interesting to see, after, I talked about the cavernous area that had basically a city underneath. I think it was the University of Hawaii, or one of the universities came out, and they talked about how under the ice there were these huge thermal domes to where it was like 30 degrees Celsius, and you could be in a t-shirt and be comfortable. And I think it's just information is just slowly coming out to prime our consciousness to a point to where, like, if there was something major that happened and they needed a mass distraction, then a sudden discovery under the ice may be found. And the Navy, this had to be top secret because of the technology used. Certain sonars found technology under the ocean, but now we can release that. Kind of mass distraction type of scenario. But that's kind of how everyone has seen Antarctica. Because Antarctica, it's weird because it's part of it they want to show you, the ancient civilizations and that kind of thing. But then there's all of these R&D programs going on down there that they don't want anyone to know about. And a lot of them were wanting me to give intel about the underground civilization, under ice civilization that they found, but they didn't want me talking about the research and development bases. But, I talked about both.
Hi, Corey. A little bit nervous. Just wanted to express that I flew all the way from Melbourne, Australia.
Wow.
On the spur of the moment last Tuesday when your promo video came through. Yeah.
Wow.
So, since you started coming forward on Cosmic Disclosure, I've been following your work, and it's changed my life entirely. And I've now come out of one chapter of my life, and I haven't found my feet in this next chapter. But this work that you've been sharing, and the advice and encouragement, I haven't quite worked out where I'm going to go and how I'm going to contribute, if not at the very least energetically. But from Australia, a very big thank you. And lots of love and lots of gratitude, and I've already signed up for Dimensions of Disclosure.
Awesome.
Just, for me, there's nothing else that's more important than this work.
Wow. Well,
Nothing.
thank you.
Does it work?
They broke it.
It's on. Maybe it did blow up. Okay, hold on.
How much time do we have? 10 minutes?
Check the time.
Check 2.
Do we go till 2?
Stand over here. Just come over here. All right, make it.
I will. Okay. Doesn't
No. Okay, what happened again?
As long as I can remember, I've been interested in what I call this cosmic totem pole, and I always wondered, from your perspective, you're the only one I know who's been talking to beings. Who or what do you think might be at the top of this totem pole? Some kind of god, goddess, all it is? Or is it a field of consciousness? Have you, any of your beings talked to you about the ultimate creator source? And is it a personality or just a field of consciousness? What do you think?
Okay, thank you.
Testing. There we go. Okay. So, what is the one infinite creator? Is that basically your question? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Do they have a beard? Sit on a chair? Yeah. Now, I talked about this on Jimmy Church the other night. Now, oneness is the most important concept to understand. It's one that very few have fully understood, and it was only recently that I fully understood it. Basically, the one infinite creator wanted to understand duality. And it didn't want to understand duality from your point of view or my point of view. It wanted to understand duality from every perceivable point of view possible. Wanted to know everything about duality, the experience of duality. So it exploded into innumerable sparks, of which all of you are. Each of those sparks is the one infinite creator. We are the one. We are a piece of the one. And it dispersed itself in this creation, this universe, which is an electric universe. You know, what do you have with electricity? Negative, positive. Everything is based on that. So when we begin to understand that we are one, I am you, you are me, time doesn't matter, it's just the experience. So therefore, you can begin to begin to work on traumas. You can fully understand, if we are one, I'm the victim, I'm the perpetrator, I'm the enabler, I'm the witness, I'm all of those. We are all the one infinite creator having this simultaneous experience to understand duality. And when I understand that I am the perpetrator, I am the victim, then you begin to understand how to use skills of, if you have a trauma, you go back to that time period and you re-experience that trauma, and then you re-experience it as the perpetrator and as a witness, and then as a disembodied witness in the room. And the energy of that trauma begins to leave because you realize we are one. And people ask the question, after the flash, when do we start becoming telepathic and communicating with each other? Well, the biggest part of that expansion of consciousness is we understand oneness. We understand we are one. If I wanted to write fully understanding that, it's the basis of shape-shifting the Native Americans would do. My grandfather would teach me with our dog sitting close by. He would say, okay, we are all that same energy, that same spark. Picture yourself laying on the floor where the dog is, looking up at us. And I would picture everything in that room from that perspective. Match the breathing of the dog. Match the heartbeat of what you perceive the dog is feeling. Basically profile, know of that dog's personality, take in what you know of that personality about what they're most likely feeling and thinking at the moment. And then you begin to have a bilocal feeling. You become that dog because you are one. That happens on a level to where we start understanding each other's thoughts, feelings, on a level that we can't even perceive of right now. When we fully understand oneness, that we all are that one spark, that one infinite creator, not one of us is having a more special experience than the other. To the one infinite creator, the way each of us, we look in the mirror, we all have those insecurities, we see the little things that no one else sees, we go through that experience as an agent, a reflection of the one infinite creator. And when we fully understand and embrace that, we begin to have a lot of these superpowers that we're talking about. But the number one superpower is beginning to understand the true nature of what we are. And if we are a piece of the one, and the one created all this, then we have the same creative abilities that we're kept ignorant of by those who want to control us and use those abilities. So that's probably one of the number one things I want to leave people with, is trying to fully understand, go into meditation, really trying to understand oneness and asking the one to help you understand what oneness is, because that's what allows you to connect with everyone and everything else.
Hello? Oh, here we go.
Where?
Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay. It's Jared Bryant. My question is wondering if you'd had a chance to see the remote viewing data from Technical Intuition about the entity named Ra, and specifically about Ra's use of sound and energy to sort of lull you into a state of mind. And I'm just wondering if that's your direct experience during these sessions, and what you think about the remote viewing data, which for me, by the way, really substantiates all of your story. And I'll let you speak.
Yeah. Is it on now? Okay. Remote viewing is very subjective. Okay. It's not on. It's going back and forth. I was talking about let's turn it off.
It's bizarre. Like, why does all of a sudden...
Don't get too close to this. Testing? Okay. Okay. I was trying to remember what I was talking about. So remote viewers, they're pulling this information out of the ether, and it still has to go through their lens. So if they have a Judeo-Christian background, then the information is going to be pulled through that lens. The information that they were pulling in that remote viewing session was very interesting, but I could see how, it had to do with the person's perception. If they think, like he was saying that the blue avians look down at us like we're plants or something like that, that is that person's point of view based on what they saw. If you have a 6th density being that has a 6th density consciousness, and you have a 3rd density consciousness trying to connect with it and relay information back, it's not going to work. I mean, it's just, there's no base of reference between those two densities. So he's going to use his lens, his experiences to describe what he's experiencing, which is literally beyond the density that he's in. So I thought it was very interesting information. The fact that they, did ping and connect with the blue avians was interesting. But you got to take, that information is subjective.
Hello. Hi, Corey. I'm back here, way in the back. And hi, everybody. We're one. I want to take us back to, you were just talking about oneness, but I came here today with this question, listening to your material. So there's this conflict in the ideas for me in terms of the solar flash, the solar sneeze happening, an ascension happening at that time, and then this idea or the idea of this prolonged disclosure, and it seems kind of pointless if this event is going to happen and awaken everyone. And what it is making me think of is, the level of anger that's, the potential level of anger that is available through these events. Are the agencies that are wanting to have this long-term disclosure kind of trying to hide out behind their own crimes of sort of we as humans forget very quickly? And so
the plan all along was to, they knew that at some point there was going to be a big event, geological, solar, whatever type of event, and that they most likely would go underground, according to their beliefs, wait out, civilization, falling, and then come back. That has been their plan all along, and to give us as little as possible to appease us up until that point. They could, us knowing aliens, or they could care less. Right. They're just trying to appease us until, their scenario plays out.
So my follow-up to that is just how do we deal with the forgiveness part of it ourselves? Is the Blue Avians talked about any of that, how we deal with that through this course in forgiveness, not just of ourselves, but these crimes against humanity?
Well, the people that have not done the work of working on their traumas from their childhood and, day-to-day traumas, if they haven't worked on those, how in the world are they going to work on such a large trauma? The people that have done the inner work are going to have a rough time, but those who have all of these hair-trigger traumas they're going to go berserk, and it's going to be bad. And we're going to sit back and watch, people flipping over cars and burning, places down. It's just going to be a part of the process. I don't know of a way to really mitigate it because people have been kept so dumbed down, so asleep, and constantly, daily traumatized by even the media that they watch. So it's just the state that we're in, and that's what we're going to have to deal with.
Hi, Corey. You've talked about galactic slavery. What's going to happen to the people in Mars? Or I don't know much about it. If whatever you've seen, what about their consciousness, us getting to understand what's happening to them, and then getting freedom, if that's really what hopefully happens?
Well, the people that are slaves in places like Mars and a few other places in our solar system that a lot of them don't even believe the Earth is inhabited anymore. They think that they're it. After this solar event knocks out most of the technologies, and the programs that run that infrastructure will collapse, and the same ETs that are going to render aid to us are going to render aid to everyone in our solar system. So they will have aid rendered to them. Now, there's another aspect of there are some of the people that have been taken into the slave trades and are in other star systems. They've been tagging these people for years. We started doing that back in the programs when I was forced to work in these programs. And at that point, the Alliance had already developed, and they were starting to tag these people so there'd be a way to retrieve them in the future. And supposedly that's what's going to occur, that some of our ET groups are going to go out, retrieve them, some of these people, and bring them to a planet to where they're going to be healed from the traumas, because some of the things that happen to these people off-world are extremely traumatizing, and they're going to have to help a lot of these people heal before they're ready to reintegrate with the rest of humanity.
Hey, Corey, quick question, or two real quick. I know you mentioned earlier something about safe zone and Colorado being more favorable than perhaps Texas. And the other one is on an individual level, how do the Anshar see the difference between reincarnation and ascension on an individual level?
Of what?
Reincarnation and an ascension on an individual level, like being embodied or disembodied or something.
Right. Well, the Anshar, they live, to be around 900 to 1,000 years old, and then at the end of that cycle, depending on where they are energetically, they are given the choice to enter back into their reincarnation pool, basically, and come back in as an Anshar kid, or to, when they get to a certain level, then they go to the next density, and their bodies don't fade out, but at the end of that life, that incarnation no longer occurs within fourth density. The incarnation begins in fifth. And how exactly that works in fifth density, procreation and all that, don't ask me. I don't know. Was that? There seemed like more. Okay, what was the question about safe zone? Yeah, you can, I have been shown maps, but they look pretty much exactly like the ones that are on the internet of safe zones, of areas being protected by wind and water, by mountain ranges, and that kind of thing. It was obvious that anywhere living within, several hundred miles of the coast was not a good idea at all. I mean, pretty much everywhere.
Hi, my name is Eric, and first of all, I'd like to express my gratitude for you coming forward and sharing this information and bringing it down to an understanding for me. 2 years ago, I was just living a normal life, unaware and awake, and then I met somebody that has similar information to you, and similar to our friend in Australia, 30 days ago, I was first introduced to you and immediately booked our tickets to come here from St. George, Utah. So there is people that are awake in Utah. It's interesting. It's interesting. So my question to you is then, when you talked about beings, other species being incarnated as third-dimensional people, have you ever met anyone with their lens removed that can, that is fully aware, that can bring down that information without any interference from the lens? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, every single one of us has that lens based on our experiences and perceptions, and people like us that will that will actually deal with traumas or put away belief systems that no longer serve us. We are the ones that are constantly adding to and constantly grinding and correcting our lens to try to get the clearest light in as possible. But it's just not possible to have a pure source of light in anymore. I mean, it comes, it all comes through our filters. Even when they approached Carla for the Law of One, the information that came through, they use a lot of like harvest and other type of Christian language. And so, I mean, that just shows you that they have to use our lexicon of words that are available to us, our experiences. They have to use those to communicate to us. And that's what they use to communicate with us, with. And so that is the lens that we have to use. I mean, I don't know if that explains it.
Oh, yeah. So even if a person has died and had an NDE and is still here, they still have some kind of a lens to speak to transfer the communication or frequency into the words we're saying.
They use that lens to interpret that experience.
There's people that are awake in Kentucky too. Not a lot, but there are. This is going to be a little bit off topic, but I don't know who else to ask. There are videos online in YouTube called the Universal Media News, and it shows where the weather cameras in Alaska and in Canada are picking up large planets right outside. And it shows where they've got a sun simulator coming up, the government, that's trying to block out these planets, and they're doing a lot of chemtrails to try to muss it up. Is this true?
I haven't heard anything about it.
I mean, I've got pictures and the videos that shows them. Another way I was thinking, maybe this is in our fourth dimensional world, that those planets are there, and since the veil is sort of thinning, I don't know.
I mean, it could be. I mean, scientists would probably come in and say energetics are causing some sort of weird gravitational lensing to where you're seeing planets from another star system and it looks like they're close.
The same planets are passing by. There's a large asteroid too, because you can see the rotation of them and the stripes on them.
No, I haven't
At
seen
the end
anything
of the videos, it says what these are, and it goes into the biblical where the world's going to be destroyed and all of that. So, I don't know. I just come here to ask you that. And you're no help.
I was going to ask that same question. There's a website called WSO with Steve Olson. People sending pictures from all over the world showing these celestial bodies in back of our sun, and you can see them. And you can see these weird things in the sky, like the sun simulator that she was talking about. It could be Nibiru, Planet X. That's the elephant in the room that they're not talking about. And they do chemtrail the heck out of the Bay Area, so we can't see, like when the sun's going down or when the sun's coming up in the morning. So you can't see these celestial bodies at all. And nobody's talking about it. And she's right. You know, you can go online, you can see pictures from all over the world, people taking pictures of it.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
These planets are like a stone throw
I'll check it out. I just haven't heard of it.
Hello, Corey. I'm so excited to be here today. I've been meaning to meet you many, many times. I've had opportunities and never given myself permission to come because I'm always giving to my children and not myself. But what I wanted to ask you is if there are enough people here that are more energetically charged and we are subject to death in this cataclysm, does our energy fall like acupuncture points upon the planet where we fall and help raise the vibration of the place that we're at to mitigate some of the chaos of the people around us who are devolving in?
Well, there are a lot of people here that are holding energetic space for the rest of us. And some of the missions have been for people to come here and just be and share their energy. I mean, that's it. And I think certain nodes on the planet, they've made sure that certain star seeds are either born there or find their way there to help balance some of these energetics. It's something that's, it's like a, I don't know, it's like a big musical piece that's being orchestrated from all the different densities and all of these different beings within the densities, some of them coming here to incarnate as us, some of them coming here energetically or physically. It's a symphony of what's going on. And what we mainly need to do is focus on ourselves. If we've gotten to the point where we feel like we've dealt with all of those and we're just trying to help others, then I think that goes back to just your skill set or what you came here with, what you're led to do. There are some people that are doing energy work I don't even begin to understand, but I know that they were brought here to do it and that it's just as important as everything else, an important part of the cycle. So I really don't know a better answer than that.
I'm really intrigued with the blue avians, and I noticed on the screen that you were showing, and my curiosity came up, how are we, how are we are developing our human consciousness interfering with the blue avians and their ascension?
What's interfering with them is the fact that we had a developmental process that would have occurred with or without them, other than the fact that they had the technologies that they had left behind were used in war. And that ended up tying them karmically and energetically to what was going on. They further got tied when they said they came down 3 different times to bring us information about oneness, to help us understand oneness. And every time we turned it into a religion or a control system. And that karmically tied them to us. So until we've moved to a certain point, they're just kind of stuck observing us.
Hi, Corey. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. My question has to do with how you, as we are informed through our truth lens, initiate collaboration with other people doing the same worldwide, globally, to spur a quicker and accelerated path. So specifically, are you able to communicate and collaborate with people like Cobra, as well as Dr. Neruda with the Wingmakers, and finally someone like Daryl Anka with Bashar?
Yeah, and I've spoken with some of these different people, and getting collaboration and unity, it sounds great, but it's really hard to do. I mean, it's really hard. A lot of us came from maybe Christian backgrounds. We didn't have such a good time in that environment, so we chose to leave. A lot of us, not all. But so a lot of people joke around about, the Christian church or that religion. when this community behaves exactly like it. They split up into all these denominations. Every other denomination's a cult. Every other person is delusional, but I've got the way in the light right here. I figured it out. That's how a lot of people are. So the number one thing I've been trying to do is just get us to a point to where we agree to disagree. We agree that none of us has the truth, but we all want it. And and to agree to not rely on these UFO belief systems we've all developed, and not debate those. To put all that aside and to find a topic that we can work together on. That's why if we talk about aliens, oh no, aliens are all good. No, they're good and bad. No, there are no aliens, they're demons. It goes into this. That's why I've been trying to get people to work on things more down to earth, like suppressed technologies and things that are the people haven't been programmed to have the giggle reaction to.
Hi, Goode. My name is Jesus, and my question is that we live in an holographic universe. It's like a big computer.
I'm sorry?
That we live in an holographic universe, like a big computer system.
Right.
That's what I heard about it too. That's why my question.
Right. Well, as I stated at the beginning, a lot of people think that we are a part of a large simulation, which could be a computer. But the way I like to see it is that we're a part of a big daydream. Someone, kicked back and had a big daydream, and we are that experience. So it doesn't totally resonate with me that we are a simulation running in a machine somewhere, though, I couldn't totally discount it.
Hi, Corey. My name is Lisa, and this has been such a journey, learning about this information and going through all the sort of realizations of, okay, the world's going to be destroyed. I was working on climate change and, sort of saving the world. So it's been a big journey to sort of wrap my head and my heart around, what's going to happen. And I recently experienced a retreat where the teacher was channeling, and the messages he was channeling are so similar to what you're saying, what the Anshar are saying, that I'm wondering if there was, part of that was coming through. And one of the things that came through was that by us, we keep talking about go inward, do your work, hold the vibration of love, higher frequencies. And by each of us doing that work, I'm curious, I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about the collective impact of that or, critical mass of that. And what came through the channel was that that there's actually the ability, and they were talking about third dimension to fifth dimension, and I don't really know how that correlates to densities, but they were saying we need to shift our vibration to fifth dimensional, 5D. And if we do that, there's actually the ability to influence timelines and outcomes, but I don't know what that would be because it seems like it's a given. It's blowing up. It's, this is happening. But what could happen on a collective level if all of us are doing this work and that scales or spreads? And is there any point in trying to influence timelines or outcomes? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, what I said with the other stars in our local cluster is that the transition that the planet had depended on the state of the consciousness of the beings on it. It affected it. So any work that we can do to affect the mass consciousness, yes, it's going to have a direct effect on the experience we have when this transition occurs. So doing the work is still very important up until the very last moment of the flash, because every bit of energy that we put into it counts. And on that, I'm going to have to end it because
I know we have someone else coming in to speak, and I need to go to the bathroom. I will. Thank you.